Hello, my name is Sandy Adomaitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun.
Hey, glad you made it. I see you brought the 25 candles for the cake. Great, because we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Steve La Rue. Steve has not only judged for the Page Awards, but he is an internationally recognized leader in film and television development. Steve has spent 20 plus years working both independently and for Paramount Pictures Corp, NBC, Universal, and 20th Century Fox, where he championed such series as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The X-Files, Simpsons, King of the Hill, Battlestar Galactica, and Farscape. We're so lucky because Steve is going to tell us the origin story of the groundbreaking television series Buffy the Vampire Slayer. First, I want to give a shout out to Fate over at Zencaster. She really helped me out this past week. Let's get started.
Welcome, Steve La Rue. Thank you for joining us at the Writers Hangout.
Hey, Sandy. Thanks for having me.
Steve, do you remember when we lived in Paris?
Yes, I do. What a great time.
It was such a good time. But we're here to talk about the 25th anniversary of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which you were a huge champion of before it even got on TV. You were the director of creative affairs at Fox at the time. I want to take a step back.
Actually, let me pause you right there because it's important to make a distinction. It's 20th Century Fox Television, not Fox the network.
Yeah, that is a big difference.
Yeah,
and you probably wouldn't even be on the interview with me if you were the director of Fox, right?
Oh, yeah, I would have been fired.
Can I step back for just a moment? Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as we all know, was a movie first. Are you a fan of adapting movies into TV shows?
I mean, sure. It's such a big trend right now. I mean, if it's good, absolutely. I mean, MASH was a fantastic adaptation from a film to a TV series. As was The Odd Couple, which is classic television. Marvel is doing it absolutely right now with all their Avengers properties on Disney Plus. WandaVision, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, they're just great.
If you are into Marvel and superheroes, this is your time, isn't it? It's just everywhere.
Absolutely.
Okay. Was Buffy a hit at the time as a movie? I mean, why Buffy? Was it, I don't know. I can't remember.
No, it was, it was not a hit by any means. I mean, the movie, it just did okay. It was very uneven. But, the best part of the movie was Buffy herself. Very little else worked about it. I had actually been temping at the feature studio like 2 years before, and I was on Susan Kartsonis's desk when I read that feature script because it was just lying there, and I couldn't believe how good it was. And so I remembered it, years later when I was an executive myself.
How did you become involved with Buffy?
Well, I was, the director of creative affairs at the studio. The time, this was the beginning of the great ascent of 20th Century Fox as a studio. Like the year before, they may have done 5 pilots, but this sales season was its most successful ever, thanks to Peter Roth, who later was president of Warner Brothers for like 20 years.
Did you know? Did you know I once got Peter Roth's tickets to a Dodger game? Well, I didn't get them. My boss got them, and I went. Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me at all.
It was amazing. I think that perhaps the president of the United States was even behind us. It was just
Wow.
the seats were amazing. But sorry, I put us on a different track. Continue, please.
Anyway, we were talking about, how Buffy, came to the studio. I mean, the WB, which was a brand new network at the time, it wasn't even called a network. It was a weblet. They maybe had 10 hours of programming a week.
Really?
And, and Buffy was, going to be one of its, first TV series. Just to put that in context, the CW is what became of the WB. That's what it was.
Oh, right.
But
yes.
anyway,
the frog.
But Garth Ancier and Suzanne Daniels at the WB read Joss's spec script. He adapted his own feature on spec.
Oh, he did?
It.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was his passion the movie was so bad to him that he just could not give up on it, which is why he adapted it for TV on spec, which was so unusual at the time.
Yeah, that's a great lesson.
Yeah. I mean, he believed in his own story that much. But anyway, the WB got the script first, and they had every intention of laying that off to Warner Brothers Television, which is, their sister company. But because 20th Century Fox released the feature, then the studio had a contractual first right of refusal on a TV series.
Oh, yes.
So they had to, at least show us the script. But they absolutely did not want 20th to produce it. They wanted Warner Brothers to produce it because that would make everything easier for the WB.
True. And they didn't know there was a wide-eyed kid back in the day reading the pilot.
Yeah, they did not know that. And also,
no, I meant the screenplay.
Exactly. And, and 20th Century Fox Television, they didn't want to produce, a pilot for the WB. That was such small potatoes to them. They did not want to do it either. But, I was the first person at the studio to read that script, and I could not believe how good it was. And I did not shut up about it. And so it got the attention of Peter Roth and Gary Newman, who was head of business affairs at the time. I made them read that script, and they saw exactly what I loved about it. And so they exercised the right of first refusal to produce the TV pilot. And they had never even met Joss at this point. They did it solely off my recommendation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to make you feel good. I mean, you have a talent for spotting talent, and good writing because you are a writer.
And, it just goes to show you that, every successful TV series has a champion of some sort at some time in its life. Someone is going to bat for that show at some point. And I was that person for Buffy.
Right. I could imagine that the casting process was really fun. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I mean, great characters. How fun to cast.
Well, at the time, Randy Stone was our head of casting at the studio, and he was great. And he brought on Marcia Schulman, who was from New York, and she had done a couple of pilots for us, probably the year before. And we loved Marcia. She was just terrific. And
she's a rock star.
She is a rock star, but Buffy was her first major gig, and she and Joss just hit it off. Buffy launched Marcia, and Marcia would later become head of casting for the Fox network based on her hitting home run after home run on Buffy. So
it paid off.
Anyway, it did pay off. I mean, originally Sarah Michelle Gellar read for the role of Cordelia, and Charisma Carpenter originally read for the role of Buffy.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot going on in the casting process. And thanks to Marcia and Randy and Joss, and also Gail Berman, who was head of Sand Dollar Productions at the time, Dolly Parton's company.
Wait. Hold the phone. We have to thank Dolly Parton for Buffy. Is that what you're telling me?
We do. I mean, Sand was the production company of record of Buffy.
You're blowing my mind right now. I had no idea.
Yeah, they produced the film.
I love, well, we all love Dolly, but I had
Yeah.
no idea that because of her, we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes, and by the way, Sand stands for the dollars Dolly, and the sand part is for her manager at the time, Sandy Gallen. So,
Yes, he was huge. My goodness,
yeah,
Sandy Allen.
and
Yeah.
Gail Bowman was president of their company, and of course, she later became president of the Fox Network and president of Paramount.
That it sounds like just so many people were elevated because of Buffy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How did production go? Was it shot in LA? Where did you guys shoot it?
Yeah, it was shot in Santa Monica, and
Really?
I think Hamilton High School doubled as the school, and we shot it on Stewart Street in Santa Monica at what is kind of Bergamot Station now.
Yeah, Stewart Street is one of my favorite shortcuts. I detest that area of town. That little section to get into Lantana is nerve-wracking.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a bumpy production. It was Joss's first directing gig. He had his hands full, and he probably made first timer mistakes. But our head of production at the time, Charlie Goldstein, just surrounded him with really solid people below the line. So it looked just fine. And
Steve, could you explain what below the line means?
Below the line is everything from production managers on down. Production design, production managers,
Right.
everything, camera operators, cinematographers.
On the budget, I believe it's the budget. This is also old school because we used to deal in paper back then. But there was
paper.
like this hard line, and above that was like the producers and writers. And then they, for some reason, just drew this really dark line. And then everybody else, the titles would come in and, what their salary is going to be. So it started to let's talk about below the line.
Yeah.
So production, any
right.
fun stories, anything, how was the craft services?
I don't remember that. But I mean, the thing I can tell you is that, the WB only ordered a presentation. So it wasn't a full pilot, which made it even less important to the studio at the time. It wasn't even a full pilot. So,
and what does can you explain presentation as opposed to a pilot?
That means we're not shooting the full script. We're only shooting part of it.
Got it.
They're paying much less for that. So.
Yeah. This is just popping in my head. Can we go back to casting? What had Sarah Michelle Gellar? Do you remember what she had done up to then?
Yeah.
Was she a fresh face?
No, she had been a daytime TV star on All My Children and had won a daytime Emmy for that. So Buffy was her first, shot at primetime as well.
What happened after the presentation pilot?
Warner Brothers, the WB, ordered it to series. They ordered 13 episodes based on the presentation, but they wanted it reshot, into a full pilot so they could air the episode.
Oh, and were you able to get all the actors back reshooting it?
Well, part of that was they wanted to recast the role of Willow. And that's when Allison Hannigan came in. She was not the original Willow.
I'm very sorry for the original actress, but that's Allison's part. Yeah. Willow is Allison's part. That's hands down.
Absolutely. Yes, but it wasn't originally. So
interesting. How'd you feel when Buffy got picked up? I mean, you championed this project forever. It feels like.
But I mean, again, back in context, this was the studio's biggest sales season ever. So everything we were doing was getting picked up. And, Buffy was just, it was my pet project. It was my baby. I was the person who cared about it the most. So I was elated. And the best thing is it didn't get picked up for the fall. It got ordered for mid-season. So that kind of took the pressure off of it a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Meaning that you didn't have to get 6 scripts written in 2 weeks. Do you mean things like that, or you guys
Yeah,
could kind of?
yeah. We were shooting so many pilots and new shows on a with a staff that was used to doing 5 shows, and all of a sudden we were doing 15. So
Oh wow.
everyone, it was an incredibly small staff, which is why it was so great for me because I literally got to do everything from development to current programming to casting. I was the development executive on Buffy, and when it got ordered to series, because there was no one else around, I was the current executive on Buffy as well for the first 3 seasons. So that was great. I got to actually really watch it grow and protect it, and fight for it.
Yeah. For our audience, when at the studio or even a network, it's kind of broken down into 2 factions. You develop a project as an executive, and then you kind of have
Hmm.
to hand it off to the
Right.
current executive, which means it's
Yes.
currently on the air, so they take it over. I've
Yeah.
never, that's the way it's always been in my world. And I didn't know that you got to do it all. And no wonder why you're so good at what you do, because that's a lot of work. I hope people understand. It takes a
It
lot
was
of
a
juggling and handling
yeah.
personalities and read and edits and cuts.
Yes. I mean, it was an exciting time, to be at that studio, for me and for all those other people. And then also Buffy was, it hit at the right time, right network, right studio, right writer. It just right cast. It was lightning in a bottle.
So, do you think that's why it became so successful? How about story wise? Why do you think it became successful story wise?
Well, it was like Seinfeld in a way because, it got to air on TV for 2 seasons and grow into a hit. It was always good, but it took a while for word of mouth to catch on so that, by the end of the second season of Buffy, it was all of a sudden important. I think Sarah hosted Saturday Night Live, that year, and all of a sudden it became culturally hot.
Oh, I'm going to go back and find that Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah, and
Um,
also the scripts were just so smart and Buffy speak. Joss has influenced a generation of writers. Who their dialogue is Buffy speak, but there was nothing like it 25 years ago, so it was unique.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me some Buffy
Uh,
speak.
Referencing Scooby Doo, by calling themselves the Scoobie Gang. When they
Uh,
were going to investigate a death, a mysterious death. It's the same thing of Avengers Assemble. That was the Scoobies.
that's adorable.
It was
Um,
adorable.
I cannot believe it's been 25 years. And Steve, I think we kind of talked about it that you got to do everything, so you learned so much. But
Hmm.
is there something that happened? Did you have an experience? Did you have an epiphany? Is there something that happened during Buffy that you hold on to till today?
Sure. I mean, Buffy proved to me that your taste is your taste. So if you love something, you have to absolutely stand up for your opinion and fight for it. And if you don't love something, that doesn't mean you have to tear it down. But you just got to fight for what you really believe in.
Thanks for that, Steve. And I really like that you added in not tearing down. Anybody writes a script, gives it to you, they're handing you their heart. And when you give
Yeah,
notes,
yeah,
let's be respectful and let's give the best notes we can, or don't give the notes.
yeah. I mean, a lot of times I'll say, this is not my cup of tea, and just have someone else read it.
You know,
as
it's so
opposed to
funny because
giving.
sometimes you and I are just in a regular conversation and I'll be talking about something and you will say, Sandy, it's not my cup of tea. Let's switch the subject.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. You have never done that. I'm kidding.
Steve, thank you so much for answering those questions. Would you like to join us for a pop quiz?
Sure, let's do it.
This is called You Develop the Show, but Do You Know the Show? And your topic is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Awesome.
Question
What a
number one.
surprise.
Going to give you a softball because we like to give you some confidence right off the top. What is the name
Okay.
of Buffy's fictitious hellmouth containing hometown?
Sunnydale.
Yes. Giles, the statesman of the Scoobie Gang, was Buffy's watcher. What was his day job at the high school?
He was the librarian.
Yes, very good. That is 2 for 2 for Steve La Rue. Third question. The season 4 episode entitled Hush, which still gives me nightmares, involved floating, mysterious, fairy tale creatures who stole what?
Voices. And what's interesting about that episode is Josh was way behind on turning that script in. And that's what his solution was to doing that script, is by having no dialogue.
Get out of town.
That's the scoop.
I think that's worth the whole podcast. I'm fascinated by that. Okay, question number 4. You're doing great. The season 3 finale, Graduation Day's big finish, saw what happen at the commencement?
A huge monster eats the principal, I think.
Yes, the mayor turns into a demon,
Right.
eats
Oh,
the
yes.
principal, the student body fights vampires, and the Scoobie Gang blows up the school. I'm going to give you
Right,
that one.
yeah.
Question number 5. Buffy's first roommate in college is named Kathy. She plays what song nonstop, making Buffy believe she's a monster?
Oh, I have no idea.
Cher's Believe. You notice not one of us broke out into song on that because I can't sing.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 6 and the last question.
Okay.
Season 6 famous musical number or episode, Once More with Feeling, had cameos of which 2 writers?
Marty Noxon and David, I can't remember his last name.
Fury.
Yeah, David
I
Fury.
am impressed.
And by the way, that musical episode was totally influenced by the musical episode of Xena, Warrior Princess.
Wow. That is really
Yeah.
cool. I can't
And
believe
what
you
the two
remembered
have
the
in
name of
common
the
is
writers.
Marty is a huge showrunner now, and she started out
Yes,
as the
she
staff
is.
writer. But what that musical episode has in common with Xena, and what Josh did, that Xena did, is it moved the story forward. It wasn't just a musical episode for fun. It absolutely moved the story
Mhm.
forward.
Well, that's cool. I did not know that. These questions, by the way, were prepared by Lisa Ripley Becker. She was the production coordinator for the majority of the series.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa. Hey, Lisa, great questions. And Steve,
Yes.
you aced that quiz. You did excellent. Before we wrap up, Steve, would you like to share your socials? Let people know where they
Sure.
can find you.
Sure. On Twitter, I'm at Steve La Rue 2. Same on Instagram, I think. And you can always check out my website, which is surfinghollywood.com.
Steve, thank you so much for taking our pop quiz and answering those questions. Really appreciate you hanging out with us at the Writers Hangout.
My pleasure. Thank you for celebrating Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I can't believe it's been 25 years.
That's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and thrive. Till we get to hang out again, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards. Executive producer, Kristin Overn. Producers, Terry Sampson and Sandy Adomaitis. Music by Ethan Stoller.